Hello everyone. Welcome to the Immersive Theater of Learning, where the magic of theater means the power of learning. And we don't have one guest today, not two, we actually have three. And we almost broke the record. We were supposed to have four guests, but unfortunately, Frances Viegas is under the weather today, so she's not feeling well at all and so she's not coming. Maybe we should give her a big hug, or maybe not. Maybe she's contagious, but maybe we should send our vibes to her so that she gets better very, very soon. And she will probably be on one of the next sessions, episodes. So I'm very happy to welcome all of you, but to welcome Anastasia here. Hello. First time on this program and already presenting. Hello, how are you?
Hello, parents. Hello, everyone. Well, I'm very happy and excited to listen to others also, not only to present.
Yes, and you and I met virtually at various theater events, right? So you're a member of Theater Europa, I believe. And I know you are working on your PhD, and before we started this, you showed us this amazing oeuvre. Would you like to do this again? What does it look like?
Why not? Why not? Yes, I will be defending my thesis, my dissertation, just on the 2nd of July, and it looks like this. Yeah.
So I think whatever you're presenting today, that's fine because with the amount of pages you have there, you already have so much credibility that whatever you're
Yeah.
presenting is going to be
And
good.
it's linked to culture, by the way, because I was investigating the sense of belonging of a small community of people which are uh, here on this land, and they are united by the fact that they're nationals, but not only by the attachment.
Mhm.
Yes, by the attachment to the land, to community, to rituals, uh, to norms of the society. So it's very interesting. Like I was investigating their identity, how do they see the community, what keeps them together, etc. So yeah, I spent kind of like 4 years of doing it, and I will be defending on the 2nd of July. And Cindy, I'd like to invite you to my defense. You have to come. Yeah, cool.
Excellent, fantastic. That's an interesting, very, very interesting topic as well, belonging. I think we should do a session on that as well at some stage. It's such an important theme in everything, and including learning, I think. So, welcome to the new joiners. Amanda, good to see you. Ezra, Aliona, Sophia. Hello, nice to have you here with us. Now, our next invitee is somebody I met in person in Lyon a couple of weeks ago at the Journée de l'Immersif. I had no idea who he was, and he gave this great presentation about a game referring to a German book, the Glassbead game by Hermann Hesse, that I am now rereading. I probably read it when I was a teenager. And he gave a great presentation. We had a great talk, and we discovered that my colleague was one of his teachers in a school in the north of France where I still teach classes. So welcome, Abhinav.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bernd. Indeed, we built a rapport very fast, realizing the common connections, interests, and serendipity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Thank you. I'm happy
So,
to be here.
yes, but you're not based in Lyon, you're based in Paris. Can you tell
I'm
us a little bit about your work?
absolutely. So I'm Indian. And this question of belonging, of course, it resonates as well, Anastasia. I've been living in France for the last 15 years and Paris for the last 12 years. And I work in innovation, AI technology, and I have a parallel life where I am an expert on frugal innovation, so constraint-based innovations, and I help companies, startups, NGOs, cities transform constraints into opportunities of innovation.
Mhm.
So
And we'll hear
that's
more
me.
about this a little bit later. Thank you very much. And my third guest today is Sandesh, Sandesh Somani, and we're both members of the World Experience Organization, the WXO, and we met in person a couple of weeks ago in London at the first London Experience Week. And Francis and Sandesh did a workshop which was very frugal and probably one of the highlights for me at the whole conference. And so that also gave me the idea, one of the ideas to put the three of you or the four with Francis together for this session. So hello, Sandesh. Can you tell us a little bit about your work without spoiling it too much?
Yeah, of course. It's great to be here. Hi, everyone. So I call myself an experiential games designer. I have a background in escape rooms and just recently branched out into freelancing for gamification of museums, festivals, activations, and just applying those same game design principles to other immersive experiences.
Okay, fantastic. We'll leave it there. So more a little bit later on. Um, and I would like to start with an activity. Actually, last week I met two of you, Ollie and Amanda, in Sitges, in Barcelona, near Barcelona, in Catalonia, at an amazing event, the Neuro Language Coaching Conference. And one of the speakers was Mark Powell. And Mark Powell has these incredible tools, very simple, some of them, but very powerful. And as we're talking about learn with less, I was impressed by his idea of the 6-word memoir. The 6-word memoir. So, can you write your memoirs not in 600 pages like Anastasia's PhD thesis, but in 6 words? I give you a few examples and I share my screen for that. Here we go. 6-word memoirs. So, for example, I came, saw, lost, and rebounded. 6 words. The commas don't count. A quest for health, wealth, and happiness. I wanted to be like Elvis. These are not my memoirs, by the way, it's just examples. A daughter, a mother, a grandma. Born brown, turned gray, dyed blonde. Work hard, sleep when I die. I realized life was a play. Or one day it will all make sense. That's 7 words, isn't it? Uh, anyway, so you can cheat a little bit. 5 or 7, but try 6. Try 6. So that's our warmer. Our warmers are never easy, as some of the regulars know, and but also we have a challenge. Nobody has ever left the room before they shared these things in the warmer. So it's quite challenging. So I would like to hear from everyone 6 words, and maybe we should be quiet for a few minutes so that everybody has time to think. Maybe take a little piece of paper and think of 6 words, not necessarily to sum up all your life, but maybe a life motto, Or, yeah, I shut up because you need to think. Don't worry, we have until 7:30. Okay. Now, if it's 5 or 7, that's okay for now. You can still make it longer or shorter.
I
Okay.
found mine,
And Ollie has found his. Fantastic.
and
Would you like to kick it off?
I apologize for not being in camera, but I am also under the weather. But I'm really blessed to attend this session. So my 6 words are from darkness to light, finding myself.
Wow. That's excellent. From darkness to light, finding myself. That's very, very, very deep. Thank you. And we have a couple in the chat already. So Shabina, would you like to read yours?
So, playfully curious designer of life experiences. I actually wanted 5 just without the experiences, but I was trying to hit your 6. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, excellent. Yes. Yeah, designer of life. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Wonderful. Thank you. Uh, B.
Oh, hi. Yes, laugh often, try hard, be brave. Just my motto.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know you, you're not just only an interculturalist and a trainer, you're also a stand-up comedian, right?
Yes, more motivational humorist now,
Hmm.
and stand-up communication trainer. Yes.
Wow, wonderful. And we had you on this program before when we were talking um, about fixed mindset and about overcoming the challenge of speaking in public.
Mhm.
But I think we would love to have you back at some stage where you can give us a little bit of the magic on comedy, right? So
Okay.
I
Can do.
I have witnesses, so you said yes. Okay. You. Okay, thank you very much. Sandesh.
Yeah, so mine is a funny one. Um, I used to always say, "Don't worry about it." Whenever my friends would question any, you know, risky decisions or something just a bit outlandish. So I got very used to saying, "Oh, don't worry about it," just because I have full confidence that things will be fine and they'll work themselves out. And then over the years, I enjoyed those challenges so much that I took on the mindset that the challenge is the goal, rather than an obstacle.
Mm, beautiful. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So don't worry, challenge is the goal. Fantastic. Great motto. Um, Luis, yours is next in the chat.
Yes, I changed it to be in the 6 words because there were too many. So moving forward with curiosity and hope.
Wow.
And I was thinking about this today because I've been very interested reading and listening lots of things about this exercise of imagining the future. Um, and I was thinking, yeah, that's the way, but always moved by curiosity and lots of hope because there's no other way.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you. Fantastic. Amanda is next in the chat. Yes, Amanda.
Okay, so it's love lost, fell, rose, tried again.
Ooh, beautiful. Great, thank you. And then Abby is next.
So it's transforming lead into gold through storytelling. I think it resonates with a lot of the theme of resilience that I'm seeing, the common theme of resilience. Yeah.
Mm, excellent. And Anastasia is next in the chat.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, there are too many small words needed to express it, you know. But the idea was attract joyfulness, create joyfulness, and share it.
Mm, okay. So nourish myself with joy, create, share. Beautiful. And you managed 6 words. How many words are in your thesis? Ooh. So many. Fantastic. And Cindy is next.
Ignite imagination, unite creativity, smile when possible.
Okay. 1 word too many, but we'll forgive you.
Yeah, I know it's 7. Sorry about that, but forgive me.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Cindy. And Cindy was on this program as well as a speaker a while ago, the second episode, I think, where we talked about music. She's an orchestra conductor. And Cindy, you have an event coming up, no?
I do on Sunday. Yay. I have a farm here in an olive grove, and it's called Stop the Noise, Find Peace in a Hectic World. And we use the farm as a metaphor for looking for tools to tranquility.
Mm,
That's it.
okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
you. And next in the chat is Ezra.
Hi, everyone. I wrote Chasing Purpose and Happiness Within a Community. I think I'm going through a transitional period where I'm kind of reevaluating what I do, who do I do it for, and why. And I've been connecting and making a lot of meaningful connections, and I really want to lean in on that and move forward with that as I'm iterating and finding out what I really want to do next.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And it's your first time on this program as well. Welcome. And Aliona, it's not your first time. You're here almost every time.
Yeah, I missed the last one. Felt so bad about it. Here to love, learn, care, connect. Because it's my memoir, I try to make it as general as possible and about me. And here meaning wherever I am in this world, because it has changed quite often. And what I'm trying to do with all my endeavors, in whichever capacity I am, mother, trainer, partner. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Now that not everybody has shared in the chat, but don't feel put on the spot if you don't have a 6 word memoir. That's absolutely okay. But if you do, just raise your hand or your virtual hand or open your mic and share. Yes, Rahaf.
Well, the first one, I think that we missed it. It was
Oh, okay.
born to play, connect, grow, and inspire. I resonate with a lot of the memoirs that were shared here in the chat today. And yeah, but to connect really holds a lot in it. You know, like bridging, connecting people and connecting with people, and learning from other cultures, a lot of things. But I'm curious about yours, Brent.
I'll share it in a minute, but we have Sophia as well.
Oh, I did write in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah. We often become what we do. Okay, wonderful. Great. Good stuff. Okay, yes, mine is I stopped trying to grow up. Okay. So I think I'm old enough to be able to say I won't manage anymore. So here we go. Right. I have a book here. It's not mine. It's not Anastasia's. It's not anybody's who's here. It's a book I picked up in a bookstore years ago, and it has 6 words as a title. And the title is When the Box is the Limit. It's by a guy called Walter van der Velde. And it's one of these books for people who don't like reading. It has a lot of pictures in it. I do like reading, but it's very inspirational. And basically, the idea is people are talking about thinking outside the box, but the idea is without constraints, nobody would innovate anything. Without constraints, nobody would. And there are loads of examples in there. Abby, do you agree with this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't have any constraints, it's so difficult to innovate. I don't know if you've seen this, I think it's Tina Silling, the creativity coach, where she does this example of telling people to come up with an idea or in an hour to come up with an idea or something. And she says that the winning team will get, in one case, she says the winning team will get $50 or something like that. And you see that just the constraint or resources that you have always bias your thinking.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Okay, so more on this a little bit later on. And we have Rick's memoir as well that has just come in. Flow, Discovery, Joy, or Authenticity Transformation. Thank you very much for this. And Rick, it's your first time here as well, and we met in London as well.
Yes, we do, fortunately, by serendipity, and I am blessed for that.
Thank you very much. Okay, brilliant. Now, let's come to Anastasia. So I invited her today not because we've known each other through theater for a while and about her PhD or about her tremendous work as an interculturalist, but because she posted something on LinkedIn that I found really intriguing, and it's about X-rays. And so let's come to you. So
let me share some screen.
Okay.
I have a question. Do you see this screen?
Yes.
Yes. Can you guess? Why can you need used hospital X-rays? What would you do with them? Just let's make a guess. The first guess. What do you think? Just reply to me, because I don't see everyone. I see just the.
Just open your mic. And what do we need X-rays for?
Yeah.
Well, you mean in a medical context, right? Not if we would want them to do something else.
Try to think out of the box, outside the box.
Yeah.
Maybe artwork? Oh, sorry.
Artwork, yes.
I think I've seen them or similar pictures used in interculturalist world to show that we're all the same on the inside. So to say.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you X-ray us, there is no skin color. There is no nationality. There is no age. Well, maybe age for special. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe internal mapping. Internal mapping. Just in maps of our own body.
Interesting. Interesting. What else? Let's just brainstorm. Just any ideas. What do you think?
To discover hidden things.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's
I've
can.
got one. I've got one.
Yeah.
A lamp.
Oh, okay.
Wrapping paper.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to wrap because they are normally, they
Not
don't
flexible
fold.
enough. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not folding. It's an X-rays.
What about
Okay.
like a stained glass window?
Oh, stained glass. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, when it's a sun eclipse or something, people
Yes.
are looking it through the X-rays.
Yes. Lovely.
But that's not what I wanted to tell you. Imagine you are a stiliaga. Stiliaga, it's the word that comes from the word style. You're a stiliaga in Soviet Union in 60s. What do you want most of all? It's the second question. What do you want?
Freedom.
Yeah, freedom.
Okay, you cannot have it. What else can you want?
Peace.
You cannot have it. Near neighbors, no one cannot have peace. What can you want? But yes, Stiliaga, you want to look good, but
Sunglasses.
you want to have sunglasses. What else would you want?
Blue jeans.
For sure, 100%. And there are special people who can help you to get them.
McDonald's.
Probably you don't know about its existence yet.
Okay.
Yeah, well, what else do you want to have?
A beautiful dress.
For sure, you want to have a beautiful dress. What else can you have?
Music and films.
Yes, exactly. You want to have music. But how can you get music? If you, for example, if you are a young student and the proper vinyl music, first of all, the music which is inscribed on this vinyl, it's a kind of music that you don't want to really listen. You want to listen Western jazz, you want to listen to rock and roll. Yeah, or some kind of rebel music, which was forbidden also, like gypsy romances or criminal tunes. They were super popular, like the soul songs, but you cannot have it. So what you do? You use X-rays to put the music on it. Can you imagine? So during the Cold War era, so the songs, the Soviet people were making and distributing on the black market. They've used an X-ray to cut onto this used hospital X-ray jazz and rock and roll. So, and it looks like, as you can see on the picture, so this was called Music on Bones, and I think that you can imagine that you cannot find a better naming for rock and roll. Yeah, music on bone, or bone rock, or music on the ribs. So yeah, it was an era when people could get a lengthy prison sentence for distributing music. Yeah, but on the black market, they've been cutting this music on the bone rocks. And also the most important thing, it costed 1 ruble. 1 ruble normally, it was not like nothing. Yeah, because if you were a student, it was enough to live one day. You could eat in the canteen, so it was like really enough to live for one day. But the proper vinyl, first of all, it was almost impossible to get it. The second, you have to go to these special people, and it costed 120 rubles. So almost impossible, for example, for students to buy a proper vinyl. So they've arrived to create a special facilities, special record players, and to cut into these 7-inch discs. And what you see in the middle, this hole, they've been making it using a cigarette. yeah, or a soldering iron to make this bone music. So it was cheap. It was rather cheap. It was 1 ruble. It didn't last very long time because it's like for 5 to 10 times you could listen to the tune from 5 to 10 times, but still, I mean, that was the only way you could do it. And this example fits very well into the anthropological concepts of affordance and inscription. So you have an inscription. It means that these film, they are used for medical information, but affordance is so much bigger. What you can afford to do. It's like when you are, for example, from a very poor family and your parents, they cannot buy you toys, or probably you live in some kind of countries where just it doesn't exist. So you can observe these children. They will use as toys probably a piece of wood or stones. They would be creative. So affordance of these things would be much better. And this is the idea under the constraint. And it's inspired also the West because when I've posted it on LinkedIn, there was someone, it was Michael Gates, I don't know if you know him, he commented it that, wow, I just realized my favorite like vinyl had a skeleton on it, and I've just realized what was it. So these recorders, they've inspired rock musicians because they knew it was an underground Soviet trend. And last thing I'd like to show you. Let's listen.
I don't think we can hear the music, Anastasia.
I can't hear it.
We can't hear it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hear the
I
music.
thought you. Okay, I will share the link, and
Okay,
you'll.
great.
So that's it. And I thought that even when people in these like horrible conditions could find this type of distributing music, I think that today we can be also much more creative than sometimes we are, and we can find a way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this story, Anastasia. And maybe one or two of you have questions, but my question to you would be growing up in a country where not everything was available, how did this shape you as a person?
I don't know, it's difficult to say, but I've never thought about it. But once again, I remember, for example, because my father immigrated when the Iron Curtain fell, and my father immigrated to United States, and we had to go and meet him there, but it never happened because it was an accident, and so it finished not that well. But he sent us a present, and I remember that he sent us jeans and beautiful white like patent leather shoes for me. And we lived very difficultly, and my mother had to sell them. And I really remember this as a kind of situation that I had to face, that I had to grow up, that I had to understand that these beautiful white patent leather shoes, which has some kind of strass on it, they went to my hands and I had to let them go, And I don't know whether it shapes you. Probably everything shapes you as a person, but yeah, I don't know. I have this kind of feeling. But it's true that we didn't have a lot of toys and we had to be inventive. And but I'm not sure. I believe that every child has this feeling no matter where do they live. And sometimes, I mean, it's not the most horrible condition. Now we see what's happening in the world, you know, there are wars, there are, okay, authoritarian regime is not a pleasure. When you have no normal food, it's not a pleasure. But there are worse things. There are children who grow up without parents. You know, it's everything is in the comparison. I think that, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that everyone has their kind of feeling that they didn't get something that should have get, but we relativize when we see things around us. I think we all relativize this.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you very much, Anastasia. Does anybody have a question to Anastasia before we move on to Abby? Feel free to put it in the chat later. We can come back to this later. Now, Abby, let's try to put a few names on what Anastasia just described. There is and I don't speak any Indian language, but yes, thank you for the link, Anastasia. But there is a word I learned not long ago, which is, I probably mispronounced it completely, which is jugad. And so what's the meaning of this word and what is the concept?
So that was actually a really wonderful example of Jugaad. And I think with your permission, Anastasia, I'll definitely use it again. I'll study it, but it explains all the principles of Jugaad. So Jugaad in India, it's a very it's a cultural term. It's multi-purpose. So like it's about finding a hack. It's like the MacGyver way of finding solutions, of transforming something wasted into a resource. What we just saw in this beautiful example, transforming something wasteful. And so Jugaad is also about like it's a it's a very it's a word with many meanings. So even for corruption, it can be used. Like find me a hack, a social hack, political hack, but it's more about ingenuity. Yeah, if there was a translation, it would be ingenuity.
Mhm. Great. And is it, do you have any examples from India that you could share, either from your own experience or something you heard of?
Um, so the most well-known example is the fridge, the clay fridge, which works without electricity. So using cooling and clay's property, how a fridge can work without electricity. So it's about doing finding a solution with the available resources. Then you have the Tata Nano, which everyone speaks in this domain, but it was not commercially a success. So it was like the vision and idea behind it was to build a car less than 2,000 or 3,000 euros and accessible for the middle class. So the story is that Mr. Tata was returning home and he was with a journalist and it was raining and suddenly he saw a whole family of five or maybe four people on a bike and he just expressed that, wow, I wish there was a car for that could transport a middle class family in total safety. So the story goes that the next day in the newspaper, he saw that this journalist wrote an article saying that Mr. Tata is going to build a car under 2,000 euros for the middle class. And so he took this as a challenge, it seems, and he told his team of engineers that it's not like make us a cheap car, like take out the air conditioning, make it into plastic or something. But it was like the problem statement that he gave them was build me a vehicle that can transport a middle class family in full safety.
Mm.
So we see in this problem statement that he has reframed the problem into an objective for his team.
Mhm.
So you have a lot of examples like it's basically street innovation,
Mhm.
grassroots innovation. How can farmers, people in the streets, at home, the philosophy is that everyone is an innovator, be it a kid, and like there's no end to innovation.
Okay. I'd like to introduce a little challenge for everyone. Don't share immediately. Don't write anything in the chat. Maybe take a piece of paper somewhere and write down as many ideas as you can. I'm going to show you an object in a second, which has a purpose. We have too many of these objects around. They are waste. And if I quote you correctly, turning something wasteful into a resource. So, can you think of as many repurposed, not recycled, but repurposed, reused, repurposed applications you can think of? And what I'm going to show you is, without the advertising, it's a plastic bottle. A plastic bottle. So let's take 3 or 4 minutes. Think of as many possibilities as you can, and then we start sharing a plastic bottle, an empty plastic bottle. Okay. So let's see. Um, Maybe we can just open the mic and throw ideas in. Whoever wants to start.
I'm happy to start. I wrote a planetary, a funnel for liquids and grains, and a float to build the float.
Very good. Nice.
I had a cardboard, metal can, paper, and maybe wood furniture.
Yeah, very good. Excellent.
I have a container, a boat, a float, a weapon, a toy, a noisemaker or instrument. And this one is particularly for me, a cockroach catcher. Very specific. You can trap any bug in it if you want. But for me at the moment, it's cockroaches.
Yeah. Excellent. Good stuff. Yes, a vase for plants. Absolutely. Yes. Speaking of plants, it's not my idea, but I saw a picture of it from India using a plastic bottle, just making holes in it, and you can use it to water plants. Very simple. Very simple.
Yes, you can use it to water plants. You can use it as a kind of plate to feed birds. Yeah, like cups, toys for children. Like, also, I thought that we can put empty plastic bottles in the luggage to block our clothes, so it does it's not a mess there if the luggage is not really full. You know, sometimes when it's a bit empty, it's tricky. So we can put some bottles there.
Yeah, you could fill it with sand and use it as a weight
Absolutely.
to stop things.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
take plastic bottles, I fill them with water, And I fill my refrigerator with these plastic bottles where there's no food because it takes less electricity for a refrigerator to keep water cool than it does to keep air cool. So it lowers my electric bill.
Thank you for this.
That's a very nice tip.
So I know what
That's
everybody will be doing after the session. Thank you for this, Cindy.
All
Excellent.
these great ideas. And my parents have a summer house where there is no running water. They use a plastic bottle as a hand washing station. They put it upside down, like screw the cap a little bit, wash hands, screw it. And what else? You can use them as greenhouse. Lots of uses for gardening, as a lamp if you're very handy. Lots of good stuff. Oh, and I've seen them used as rocket launching devices at a kids' fair. They're attached to like a large tube. You put a rocket on top of it. You tap onto the plastic bottle, and it launches the rocket.
Exactly. Fireworks. Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I want to share in Colombia, they have used it in the ceilings and the rooftops, and they open a hole in the rooftop and then they put the bottles, and the light is like a magnifying glass. So for the houses that do not have light, at the end, it's like having very shiny places during the day, of course, but it helps. And then if you add water, it can also make a different, so it's like a light bulbs or
Wow.
yeah, at the end. So to clear, to make shiny the houses during the day that inside do not have much light.
Wow, beautiful example as well. Excellent, good stuff. I saw pictures of this. I don't have them here, had I known, but people basically squashing those bottles and using them as sandals. Have you seen that, Abby?
Yeah.
Or I even saw a boat made of plastic bottles, right? And it floats.
Right.
Yeah, and things like that. So excellent stuff.
So,
Abby,
yeah,
yeah.
I wanted to share, like, it's funny that you gave this exercise because I've been doing this since the last 7 years in my workshops, and I probably have done over 50 of these workshops where I ask them to bring bottles and all the waste that they have. So, like in the last 3 years, actually, I've stopped doing it with plastic bottles because more and more people don't have them. And I tell them and I take like scissors, ropes, threads, and rubber bands, and I tell them you have 10 minutes to save the world, and I put them in pairs, and then I keep announcing the time like every minute to build the pressure, and it's pretty amazing. Everything, all the ideas that people can come up with, and like I even had in one of the sessions where someone made like a hearing aid with two bottles. Um, and the example that Diana shared is actually like called the litter of light from Philippines, where they put bleach and some salt so that moss doesn't grow in, and it uses the sunlight as refraction so that during the day, households that don't have electricity can be lighted. So,
Absolutely. Now, your work is mainly in France, I suppose, Abby, and so you said you work with companies. How can companies in Europe benefit from the principles of Jugad? And even though we have a lot of stuff available.
so this bottle experiment is the best example of cognitive bias called functional fixedness, what you posted as well on LinkedIn. So I think in the West, we especially suffer from that because in companies, people are used to, uh, they are given resources like you have this budget, solve this problem, or there are processes that have been put in place for risk management regulations, all these ISO norms, but then with time, people forget why we were doing what we were doing, and it's very hard to break this functional fixedness, and that's why where Jugaad or ingenuity or frugal innovation comes in is how can we see the available resources in a different light.
Yeah.
So especially like when you have constraints like COVID, we needed COVID to see that we can do some things differently. You needed the energy crisis to see that, okay, we can still uh, cut down our bills. But like we needed external constraints to re-engineer the processes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Also, yeah, I was thinking of improv as well, right? Improv, theater, improvisation techniques where you take an object, could be any object, and you would then not necessarily something that makes sense. It can be something that doesn't make sense, but as the principle of improv is yes, and so you always accept what somebody else before, another player before has said. So if I said this, not this is my cup, but this is my girlfriend, you would say something like, "Ooh, and she's beautiful," uh, and so you would just accept that, right? So any suggestion is fine. Now,
Yes, and
yes,
I just wanted to add that, yeah, like that's the principle behind the mindset of Jugaad and frugal innovation. Like when you don't have a solution, and that's also the philosophy of bricolage. You just yes and with the resources that you have.
Exactly.
So it's improv, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, Sandesh, you're a bit of an outsider here because I know that you work on £1 million budget. No, I know that you don't, right? And actually, the workshop you did with Francis, who can't be here today, unfortunately, in London was exactly about that. It was how to create something magical on a low budget or no budget. Could you share a little bit about your work?
Yeah, of course, of course. Would I be all right to share some slides?
Of course.
Perfect. Great. So this is me. I work with gamification, and a lot of the time I'm working on a very low budget. If anyone is familiar with escape rooms, the far majority of them are very low budget experiences that have all been DIY'd. They don't have any fancy production teams behind them. It's just all of the operators banding together to make something beautiful happen. So I worked on a fun little project called the Haunted Hound. So in the escape room venue, we had a bar space which was used as the lobby for people waiting to go into an escape room and people who have just left. And for the most part, this space was just dead weight, and people weren't staying very long. They weren't spending anything on the drinks that we had to offer. So we decided why don't we bring some of the escape room elements out into the bar? But we didn't have a budget. It was just an idea that I had that wasn't proven. We've not seen it anywhere else. And we didn't want to sacrifice any of the operating cost either. So this needed to be a game that runs itself. It doesn't need any maintenance, and the technology couldn't be advanced. And the puzzles needed to reset themselves somehow. Um, and the Haunted Hound is what I came up with. So we had 2 weeks, low budget, and just to give you guys an idea, it was around £2,000 all in all. So that included all of the props, all of um the labor and all of the technology involved. And like I say, we didn't have any operating staff for this to keep it ongoing. It was just gameplay, theming, and narrative. Now, the gameplay was, well, the narrative was that there are missing owners and there are these paranormal artifacts in the bar. And there's also a mysterious phone that rings every so often with distressed spirits on the other side. You can also use that phone to get in touch with the spirits if you have the correct phone number. Now, that phone was just something that we bought off the shelf and then customized. So it just plays sound clips when you input the correct code. The gameplay was incredibly simple. So we just told players to explore the venue, investigate the artifacts, and then contact the spirits when you found some sort of information. And this was great because we just left the bar open so you could explore at free will. And because of that, people were discovering things themselves. We didn't need to create a space that opened up progressively. We just had to fill a space that was rich with narrative, and then people unfolded that narrative as they went through. All of the puzzles were environmental clues. It was just things that you could see on a wall or an object that was positioned a certain way, and that gave you information on how to progress. The rewards were just discounts, secret menu items, and one final treat at the end. And I think secret menu items are an amazing reward. People love that. Better than the discounts and better than the final treat because it's like they've unlocked a mystery on top of the mystery that they're already solving. The results are, oh, here's some photos. I probably should have included that on the previous slide. Here's some photos of what the bar space looks like, the interactions, the phone, some of the environmental clues. Yeah, the results were amazing. So guests stay twice as long. They now spend 3 times more on food and beverage. The return rate to the escape rooms, which is the main offering of the venue, had increased by 7%. We gained 1,000 5-star reviews for the entire venue, and word of mouth bookings increased from 5 to 15%. And then also, the very crucial part is that staff love it. And they love it because they don't have to touch it. They can just tell people, hey, there's this game, there's a mystery going on. We don't know how to do it, but good luck. And then leave them to it. Which is very unusual for a games master to do because games masters are so used to holding people's hand through the game. So the fact that you can create something that is self-servicing was really key here. And the gamification elements, I'll just quickly go over these because we don't need to dwell on them too much. These are the things that I kind of focus on in gamifying an experience and making it more engaging. A lot of people feel like gamification is quite complicated with systems and mechanics, but really I just bottle it down to agency, challenge, mystery, rewards, and interaction. So agency, people just walk around at free will, which is unusual for hospitality, especially. There's a mini golf layout, which makes sure that everyone stays in a generally spaced out enough that they don't bump into each other. And there's multiple paths that you can go down. So there's written notes, you can listen to the spirits, or you can study the physical space. So give them agency and freedom. Challenges, so you want to make sure that there's a clear objective. We pretend like it's unsolved so that it becomes this thing that they're fighting for. And every task also references the goal. This keeps people engaged for longer and it keeps them pushing forwards. Obstacles aren't challenges or things that get in the way. They're just opportunities to overcome something, is the way that I like to think about it. And keeping all information present means that then the challenge is piecing those pieces of information together rather than locking information away. And then people run into issues where they could get stuck and then disengage from the experience. So if everything's out there in the open, but you just have to find the right balance in combining that information, I think that's a great way to go about it. And then keeping all of those tasks easy but high quantity was the most effective thing to do because people got really quick wins and they got loads of those quick wins, and it just meant that they stayed for longer and longer. Mystery, so you want an unsolved question. All of the objects had their own backstories. All theories as well were valid. So this was something that was it was a question at first whether we wanted definitive answers to things. And what we settled on was, yes, there is a definitive answer, but players don't necessarily find that 100% narrative. We kind of give them little bits and pieces here and there and allow them to form their own narrative theories. And this was really good because in terms of engagement, people discussed it, they talked about it, they sat down with their drinks afterwards and tried to work out what this all means. And rewards are just feedback. So you don't need anything crazy from them. You just need to show gratitude and encourage progress. And that's what will increase your dwell time. There was secret codes, phrases for discounts, like I say, secret menu items. So these aren't things that you need to shell out trophies for. You can just have these things that are unlockable and just show your appreciation for that person's time. Just complimenting someone on their progress as we walk through the bar does wonders for people's mood whilst they're playing the game. And interactivity is just allowing actions to have outcomes. So the objects that were used were just vintage bought items. So they weren't things that we had manufactured or fabricated. We just found items and then played around with them. We saw what we could reveal from these items, or we laid them out in interesting ways, and then saw how they changed after you played around with them. And then we used that to formulate the puzzles from. And then also a really interesting way to create that aspect of the world being changed is the world being changed by the player's perspective of it. So after you complete a puzzle, the room itself isn't different, which is great for a budget, but the player's perception of the world is different. So the spirits can now be heard, and the narrative cares about your input. So the flashing lamp in the room is no longer just a flashing lamp. It's a spirit that's trapped within the lamp that can now be heard. So it's a completely different mindset shift, but it's the same room. Here's a little before and after as well. Like I say, it was just a £2,000 budget, and it was all done DIY, just wallpaper and paint, a lot of spray paint, a lot of cobwebs, and just random bits of furniture that we bought from vintage and antique stores. And yeah, gamification doesn't need to be complicated. Just give people freedom to act, give them a target, keep some of the things hidden, reward their progress, and then make their input matter. And a few little extra pointers, which I'd presented in the London Experience Week, is one, don't promise El Dorado. So a lot of times we try and create experiences that are quite grand and, have magical results. But if we kind of strip down those expectations and just say, hey, there's a weird mystery going on in the bar, and it would be great if you guys could help us solve it. Like, this isn't Disneyland that you're stepping into. This is just a bar space, and it would be cool if you could figure out what's going on. Number two is put all of your eggs in one basket, as opposed to, the classic phrase of not putting all of your eggs in one basket. In the bottom right here is a ghost hunting game, and one of the key devices that we used was an EMF reader. And that EMF reader was used to find ghosts around the room. And one of the questions in the development of it was, how many puzzles should we have? How many devices? But instead, we put all of our technological budget into that one EMF device and then made it multi-use. And that kind of brought the quality of the game up so high, where people saw everything else as very high budget because that one device was so well done. Number three is create a sandbox. So create a space that people can play within. So sometimes you don't need to have a structured narrative, structured spaces, and people flow from this thing to another, and then you have to figure out how the UX of that might work. Sometimes you can just give people resources and a confined space and then let them play within it. And number four is the most crucial, is just work with what you've got. I think that's really, really important. And that's everything from me. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing this, Sandesh. Excellent. Good stuff. Where do we find this magical space?
It is in Sheffield. Yes, it's in Sheffield, but it will soon be making its way over to the US.
Ooh.
Yeah. More on that later.
Okay, fantastic. Great stuff. There's a funny thing at the event, Journée de l'Immersive, where I met Abby. I was in a workshop with somebody who presented things the other way around. I won't give you the name, but she had this incredible thing with a lot of technology, and the workshop ended up in some kind of complaining session about how little funding people get and how underestimated the immersive scene is and so on. And I don't know why, but then she turned to me and asked, how do you do it? And I said, well, if somebody gives me a table, I work with a table, right? So, so I usually have no budget or low budget. But then I said, well, I don't use technology much. So that was not very helpful for her, but maybe it got her thinking, right? So she already had something really, really good, but she wanted bigger screens and everything. And so really, really interesting. There are a lot of things that in the learning community, we could also, from what our three speakers have shared today, just we don't have to necessarily discuss it, but just a few open questions. Think of the idea of the vinyls. So in your learning experiences, in your workshops, in your courses, what are your X-ray vinyls? What are the artifacts that you use, maybe reuse, repurpose? What are these tokens? What is your fridge without electricity? And how do you use the yes and principle? Not to fall into the trap of functional fixedness. Then also turning something wasteful into a resource. How do you do that? Theming, what Sandesh mentioned. So is everything in your experience themed? Does it make sense? Does it belong together? Is it DIY? For most of us, probably is. And so I like the idea of a self-servicing space, right? So very often in learning, we focus on our workshops and our activities and so on, but what about the space? What about the time when we're not with the learners? Maybe they have some kind of sandbox. They could have some kind of sandbox where they can continue the exploration and the learning and so on. So very, very inspiring stuff. Anybody has any comments or questions? We still have one design sprint for you, so we shouldn't take too much time for the questions. So because I want to send you into breakouts to actually come up with an idea in, say, 5 minutes. So let's practice some Jugad. But does anybody have comments or questions?
Well, I mean, I don't know really the context. I don't know everybody's context because I wasn't here at the beginning in the first 3 minutes. So I don't know what everybody, what your working contexts are here. But, with the storytelling theatre and improvisation workshops that I run, it's all the resource is the people. The people are the resource.
Yeah.
And that's sustainable. And what I do is I bring frameworks.
Yeah.
And the people create the material. So it's really simple. There's no setting up in terms of what we've seen with Sandesh. Because the people who are on the course will bring their life experiences to the session and they create the story, the experience. And so there isn't any waste. Actually, the only thing I would say that we use that is potentially wasteful is the paper that we might write on and the pens that we use. But there isn't any waste. And I don't use anything electronic. There are no screens, there's nothing. So there's no energy other than the energy and the dynamism of the people in the room.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. It's also beautiful to kind of refocus on the most important element in learning, the people. And basically, we need the spark, and we can have very, very high budget technological forms of learning, but very often, well, they can, but very often they don't fulfill the promise, right? So because it's everything, all the budget goes into technology, but not into, and if you keep it low budget, you can also really personalize it, right? So you are with the learners and you can be just with them. Yeah, absolutely.
Bern, what I'd like to just add maybe is indeed in the learning space, like normally we just say doing more with less, Google innovation, but it is actually doing more with less with what we have and who we are. And the doing, we don't put enough emphasis on doing, and it's all about skills. So yeah, that's all.
And I also wanted to share lots of thoughts on that in that regard. But what Amanda was just saying, it just reminded me of my master thesis, which I wrote like 12 years ago. It was on e-learning for developing intercultural competence. I was exploring different products on the market that could be used for developing intercultural competence. And I found, well, at the time there were not too many, but I found some and I categorized them, and there were some that were like instructional, like different tools, tests and models, and I could see there is lots of effort put into those, into developing them graphically and like technology put into them. Then there was some more like interactive, something like a game on, well, with an intercultural context. And then the next level was something like experiential. And that's interesting that I could not find the exact content for the most effective way to develop intercultural competence, because that experiential way, it's like immersion, and you cannot provide that content until you meet the person and develop it with the person. So that's one thought. And then now when I have my intercultural programs, actually, like whatever I see around me, I can use as a tool for, like, as an example of intercultural differences. I wanted to put that picture in the chat, I think. Yeah. So if you want to have a look at it and if you have guesses what it is. So I saw it. Do you know what it is?
No.
Burn? Okay. Any ideas from anybody?
Was it a kind of toothpick? I have no idea. You don't know how big it is, what the size of it is.
It's about the same size, I would imagine.
Oh,
I've never
okay.
seen it in person, but I saw it like online, and I thought, oh, what a great example of to show some of the um, characteristics of American culture. Well, that's an Oreo cookie dipping tool. So, and I thought, okay, well, that's fun. I mean, I imagine people moving to the United States would not know what it is, and with that object, I can show like how in the United States you can find objects for a very specific purpose, and with that, I can explain that characteristic, like they're very specialized in some knowledge, or we can also touch the subject of wastefulness and things like that, like many things that we can discuss just with one object.
Wonderful. I love the example. Thank you very much for sharing that. And Rahaf had a question.
Yes, I wrote it down because I wasn't sure if we have time actually. Just like how do you usually start the process? Do you usually, I know that both scenarios are okay, I guess, but do you usually start with the idea and then try to find what resources do you have? Or do you see the resources you have and then build ideas off of that?
That's a great question. Probably we can put that question to Sandesh.
So I first start with the goal. So what is the purpose for this project? What do we hope to gain from it? And then I look at what resources we have, and then how do we accomplish that goal within those constraints?
And Abby, how would a Jugad practitioner answer that question?
So a bit like Sandesh, but like I would rather start with the available resources and constraints because sometimes when you fix the goal too soon, you miss out on the available resources because it filters out some of the resources. But yeah, it's basically based on what you have, and you just yes and the story develops. Like it's not you just go with it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a natural flow.
It emerges.
I find myself collecting things sometimes before I even start the idea. Like I leave, for example, some leftover waxes, some beets, leftover colors from beets, and like other vegetables, and I might just use it and collected like dead plants, for example, dead like leaves of a plant. I collect things on the corner and then I come up with a project. And this is usually not like, collaborative projects, but it can be. Yeah. I also was raised in a culture that reuses everything. And I mean everything.
Absolutely. That was the idea for the activity. We won't have really time to go into this, but I share it with you anyway. Otherwise, you go away with FOMO. And you could do this on your own later on. But the idea for the activity was to take just one object. It could be one of these, or to pick an object in your room. It could be Aliona's object. What's it called again? The cookie.
It's very specific. It's Oreo, the round cookie, like that sandwich one, because it has that cream inside. Oreo cookie dipping tool to dip it into milk.
So if you learned any terminology today, it's ovial cookie dipping tool. So wonderful. It's almost 6 words. It's only four. Almost as long as your.
Why do you need that? I'm curious because can't you just use your finger to dip your biscuit in your milk or your tea? Yay. Okay.
Well, you can use your fingers to eat, but you still use a fork. So I guess
Yeah.
you want to dip your fingers into milk.
Yeah. Tell people they need something and then they need it.
Excellent. Good.
So they get it like where is the white part, yes, with this tool? Ah, okay. No.
Yeah.
We need to see it in use, I think, in a picture.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I'm intrigued by the kind of, I mean, I like a lot of little objects, and whenever I do something in person, I always bring some props. And uh, many of us get to work in these very austere, almost hospital-like training or classrooms, right? So, which do not really inspire people to be creative. And I would rather work in a Sandish's haunted hound. What is it called again? Uh,
Yeah, haunted hound.
yeah, the haunted hound space. And so I always try to very quickly, because I don't have the time to change the color of the walls and things, but to bring props so that the space doesn't necessarily look like a classroom and inspires people to play. But I'm intrigued by this idea of a self-servicing space. So people enter and without any instructions, they could just discover the objects. And then maybe at some stage, the facilitator would come in and say, "Oh, what have you learned?"
So there's this NGO in India called Nooks, and they design learning spaces for schools, just like they're not exactly Fab Labs, but they design the space in such a way where learning happens by itself with one facilitator and everyone else.
Yeah. There's also, it's an example from India as well, a very famous person, but I forgot the name, the Hole in the Wall project. Do you know about that?
Um, is it the
It was basically this person set up a project on teaching children in to use a computer
right?
without any instructions. So basically just building a hole in the wall and then just putting a computer in there and people learned to use it playfully. They didn't even speak any English, and so they just learned it by doing, which proved a case of we don't necessarily need instruction. We need the possibility to play around with things. Okay,
The space, yeah, the space is really important.
absolutely.
Sure. And if I may share really quickly, last time when I missed your presentation, I sent you a picture from Nashville, and we visited Parthenon, the copy of the Parthenon in Athens, and I like they had that learning space for children, and I'm a big fan of those spaces at the museums. I love exploring them myself, and while trying to take ideas for my trainings too. But they had like amazing stations for children, and it was exactly what we are talking about. Like kids were supposed to put like pieces of puzzles like related to that building in correct order, and once they did that, something happened, like a picture would light up and show something.
Mm.
So I just love that work that people do at many of the museums here in the United States. I've seen some in Europe too, so I love exploring those spaces.
Yeah, and I mean that reminds me of my six-word memoir, but very often I'm attracted to these spaces for children when I go to museums because they're so interactive. I remember a museum, this was somewhere in England, I think it was Dover, where they had a puzzle, but a life-size puzzle to reassemble a boat that they had found in excavations. And it was just wonderful, these huge pieces of wood, putting them together to make a boat. And that's brilliant. Wonderful. Great inspiration, great ideas. We just have enough time to thank all of you for coming to this session. So this group, first time we came together as a group, uh, maybe the last time. It's not the last time this series will be running. So we'll have another session in June. I don't know when yet, but you will see the information on LinkedIn. And but I think we should all come to Anastasia's defense on the 2nd of July. Okay, so best of luck with that. Thank you very, very much. Um, and I think we should all go to Sheffield then as well to check out the Haunted Hound. Thank you very much, Sandesh. And Abby, what are your next moves? What are your next projects?
That was really a rich evening, Bernd. I learned a lot. That was really stimulating. My next moves and projects are designing these experiences. I think there's a lot to be learned from nature as well, and constraints, and so I'm trying to design like a retreat with the game that I presented in Lyon,
Yes.
but around something with nature. I still need to figure out how to frame it in a different way of connecting with nature, with constraints and abundance.
Wonderful. Yes. And you talked about the game. I would really love to discover the game one day and experience it. And I think it's a game that takes 8 hours, no?
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our wonderful guests. And have a wonderful evening, morning, day, night, wherever you are. And thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
This was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you. Keep shining.